Greetings. Vietnamese is a single syllable language. Of course, we can put more single syllable words in a row with spaces separating them in order to create a bigger meaning. But the basis of it is that it's separated all into single syllable words. So what we see in the language separated by spaces, it's all pronounced as single syllables. Even if in some languages, when one tries to pronounce without the knowledge of the phonetical and spelling system of Vietnamese, one doesn't really think that it's a single syllable word, even if it seems quite long, without a space separating the letters yet. It still is pronounced as a single word, perhaps because there is some phonetical rule or spelling rule that makes more letters pronounced as one sound, as one consonant. Alright. Although it would be more consonants in another language. But we won't focus on that too much, although it was a very useful introduction in this context, because we're going to focus on the tones. I'm going to use the basic word ma, ma, sort of like this. And then I'm going to also list the remaining 5 tones in order to list all the different tones and represent thereby the tonal marks in this language. There's 5 tonal marks, and all the other marks in the diacritics of Vietnamese are for different things, not for tones. So all the tonal marks that denote tones are just 5, and from them one can know how to pronounce any tones. And whenever one sees a word, one can identify the tone. And furthermore, when there's 2 words with a different tone in a row, they don't affect each other. The tone for each of the syllables stays the single syllable words. And so that's why language also sounds the way it does, quite dynamically, because the tones are kept for the syllables. When one tone and another tone are next to each other within their own respective single syllable words, they don't affect each other really. So let's list the 6 tones that are present in the Hanoi dialect. There's also other regional dialects, and they're very also common, and we also use them, perhaps in some grammatical videos. We're going to be just using, for example, some South region dialect, and in those, a lot of the tones are sometimes merged, so they don't distinguish in between tones, even the way each of the tones is pronounced is slightly different. Although the general ideas stay, some tones that could be seen as rather similar are merged, or even if they're not that similar, they're made same, and the 2 diacritical marks basically stand for one tone. And so it's just because the standardized spelling has the distinguishment between them, and the Hanoi dialect has the distinguishment between them. But in some regional dialects, one might encounter the fact that some tones are pronounced the same, even though they're spelled differently with different tonal marks. But here we'll actually cover all the 6 tones. So let's see. We'll use the word ma ending with a vowel, and also, by the way, note that tonal marks are put above vowels in the word. So we have consonants and vowels in the word, but above the vowel is the tonal mark, as a matter of rule. So let's see. Ma is the default tone. A tone basically is the way one intonates the word. The way the height of the voice changes throughout the pronunciation. And especially this word, because we have the vowel at the end, is going to reflect in the vowel part of the sound of the word. If there's no diacritical mark, as here, there's no explicit diacritic mark, it's just the letters, then it's a flat tone, it's the neutral tone. Ma, one doesn't change the height of the word, one keeps the same height throughout the pronunciation. Let's go to the next one. So the next one is called falling, and we can represent it with a line representing the sound from the pronunciation of the word as a falling line, because that's the way it's pronounced. It's pronounced something like ma. One lowers the sound, lowers the pitch. So it's basically the pitch development throughout the pronunciation of that word that is the tone. A rising tone is the opposite of the previous one. It's ma, one raises his voice like that, raises the tone of the voice. Next one is not so straightforward. It can be called a question mark tone, because that's the tonal mark that's used for it, this sort of question mark. And it's similar to the falling one, but not really, because there's also a swing back up a bit. So something like ma, ma. And it again depends on the regional varieties. In some cases one might, and also on the speed of one's pronunciation of the word and the tone in it. And so again it depends. But generally it can be pronounced something like ma or ma, and yeah, that's that. The next one is the cracking tone. There's like a crack throughout the pronunciation, So it's something like the rising one, but there's a small stop. So again, it will be emphasized on the ah sound in the word ma, ma. So we see here it was something like ma. So here was something like this, like a wave. And here it's something like it's going up, but there's a crack, and then it goes up again. So ma, ma. So that's this one with the curly line. And the last tone with the last mark that exists in Vietnamese is a dot below the vowel. So when there's a dot below, it's another tone, and it's a quick, abrupt stop, a quick stopping tone. Quickly ending one. A dot below. And it's pronounced something like ma, ma, ma. And again, there's regional varieties, and it's gonna differ, but the general, this is sort of an intro in the most general way, if one wants to really pronounce them generically, in a way that one can distinguish in his head the sound of each of them and not mistake one for the other. This is probably the best way to approach it. The flat one, keep your voice flat, ma. The falling one, lower it, ma. The rising one, heighten it, ma. The question one, do like a wave, go down, but then go a little bit up, so ma, ma, ma. Then especially the Hanoi dialect, it doesn't go that much up a lot of the time in the end, so it's more like ma. But anyway, the cracking one. So, but if you want to make it more seen, then in the southern one, in the southern dialect, one can spot that in the southern regions, it's more pronounced of a comeback in the end of this question one. So it's not like just ma, but it's more like ma. So the end goes a little bit more there, back up. The ma cracking one, it has a small crack, a small stop, and kind of goes up, but there's like a crack in the sound, ma. And then with the second part being higher, generally, and then this one is like an abrupt stop, so it's something like just go quickly down, ma, ma. And again, one might spot a small, tiny rise back in the end of this even quick abrupt one, but not necessary to focus on, especially during quick speech. It's just ma, ma, quick, very quick. And again, the words can also end with consonants, and then the sounds will be slightly different, and even the way these tones are pronounced might differ a little bit, but we should go into that in another one more, because it becomes a little bit of a rabbit hole, a little bit more of a thing to go deeper into. And generally, these are the tones that are present. And again, all the other diacritic marks that are present in the language are focused on the consonants or on the vowels, on the specific pronunciation of the letters, on other phonetic aspects, not on the intonation. So generally, a single syllable word in Vietnamese, which they are basically all words that are pronounced, it's all single syllable units. Then if you put more single syllable units in a row, like the word Vietnamese is basically two single syllable words at the end of the, they both have their own tone, namely the rising one and the falling one. Now here it's a little bit different because we would have to also know to pronounce the whole thing. One needs to know also the rest of the phonetic system, know how to pronounce this cat, which is not a tone, it's just a difference for the pronunciation of E. This thing is the tone and this dot will be the tone. So these two, what I meant to say here mainly, this has the rising tone and this one has the quick abrupt stop one. The quickly stopping one. So that's that. And now that we covered this, last thing that might be noted is also it affects whether if it ends in a vowel or in a consonant. In some consonants, for example, in the rising tone, that's a thing that one could note, and we'll get to that in examples, especially later, more. That's far better to see through practice. And think, for example, if one has the word sak, it's this symbol will shorten the a, and thereby the rising tone will have more of an aggressive, quick rise. And when there's a consonant with a lot of tones, the sound of the consonant is sort of lost. So that's a thing to just keep in mind. Not gonna go that rabbit hole now, but just generally remember that this always applies. Just there's small alterations in the actual pronunciation depending on if it ends with some particular consonant, and preceded by some of this little bit shortened. For example, this A with this half circle makes the A shorter, the A sound shorter, but that doesn't affect the tone directly. That it's just that the consequence of it is that the tone will also be shorter because it relies on the vowel, and then there's this k sound, the C. But again, a lot of the time with some of the tones, especially the consonants at the end are kind of irrecognizable because they're so fast pronounced or so quickly pronounced, or yeah, the tone has such an effect on the whole phonetics that consonants are quite lost in the process sometimes, but they just rabbit hole to go in eventually. But to recap one last time about the tones here, we have 6 of them. The basic one, it has no diacritic mark without anything, flat ma. Then if it's falling, it has a line down ma, rising ma goes up, question tone goes down but in a wave, and then goes up depending on the regional pronunciation, but generally one would say something like ma is the pronunciation of this one. This one, it has a crack and goes up, ma, and this one is short abrupt stop, so ma. So there's that.